Writing scripts for other people, creating a graphical user interface, part 4, data tables. Data tables are powerful. They're a powerful way of working with data, of presenting data to users in a graphical, sometimes even editable environment, but they can be a little tricky to get started with. So I thought it'd be a nice way to kind of wrap up this discussion on graphical user interfaces if we took a look at how to actually use these things. Now, hopefully you followed along with parts 1, 2, and 3, where we created the graphical user interface, added some code, and then gave you some options for presenting the output to your users. Now it's time to tackle these data table things and see what they can do. You might find that, although they're a little bit more work, data tables might give you the option to present input and output all in one screen, or sometimes maybe just present a better way of presenting certain types of output to your users. This nugget's actually going to be a 2-for-1 because in addition to learning to use a data table, you're going to also learn how to fill that data table into a data grid view. So we're starting here in SQL Server Management Studio, which might not be what you expected, but the whole point of a data table is to pull information from a database. So I want to just start with this. Now, if you rewind back to the nugget we did on working with data in SQL Server, that's where I actually created all this data. So it's all new again. So here's my computer. My SQL Server server name is client. That's my computer name. I could also refer to it as localhost, followed by a backslash. And the name of this particular instance of SQL is SQL Express. Okay, straightforward. The database I'm in is admin data. And in there, I have a table named disk details. Here's what it contains. There's a computer name column which contains, oddly enough, computer names, drive, free percent, free space, and size. Okay, I'm going to leave that up in case we need to refer to it. I have come into my project, and because a lot of this is stuff that I just showed you in the previous nugget, I went ahead and did it. I've created a new form. I've named it grid. I do want to go in here and I want to dress it up a bit. I want its start position to be center parent. Let's get rid of the min and max buttons. Minimize, maximize, and let's set the form border style to be non-resizable, fixed dialog. There. So I've added, from over here in the toolbox, a data grid view. It's right there. That's what this big gray thing is, and I added an exit button. The exit button is not doing much. It's simply calling close, so that closes the form. All the way up at the top here, I've defined a computer name parameter. So I'm accepting an incoming computer name. Back on my main form, I've added another button called disk data. So the intent is you would type a computer name in here, and then you could click get logs like we've been doing, or click disk data. Disk data is right here. It's running call disk data grid PFF, so that's my new form up here, passing in whatever computer name was typed. So everything else happens over here, happens in the form event load. I've defined a connection string that's going to get me to my local host SQL Express. It's going to get me to the admin data database, and it's going to use my current logon credentials to log in. I've then defined a SQL language query. Select drive, free percent, free space, and size from the disk details table where the computer name equals whatever computer name was passed into this parameter. All right, remember those are my columns. Drive, free percent, free space, and size, and computer name. So it's just using that information. I've set up a SQL connection to that database and opened it. And I've set up a command that uses that connection to execute my SQL language query. Then I've created a data adapter which will execute that command and retrieve whatever data the command returns. I then create a data table object and I ask the adapter to fill the data table with data. Data tables can be bound to the grid view. And so here's that grid view, data grid view results, right back in design mode. If we look at this data grid, click on it, it's called data grid view results. So back in the script, I'm telling data grid view results to set its data source equal to that newly filled data table. There's a lot of code there, but kind of once you've conquered this, it's a lot of copy and paste. This is the only thing that tends to change. Well, your connection string, obviously you have to connect to the right server. You change this to change what data you're querying. All this is pretty much boilerplate. But look how cool it is when you actually run it. dc.lab.pri. Get logs. That's what we've been doing. Let's look at the security log. Oops, lost my, there we are. Let's look at the security log and only get the newest 50. Okay, that still works. There's our grid view. That's fun. Show me the log properties. Yep, that's still working. Show me the disk data for dc.lab.pri. And it just queried that right out of the database. How awesome is that? Click exit. I can close my way out. I think that is just the coolest thing you can possibly imagine, is to pull all that data together like that. I think it's really, really neat. Now, as you start experimenting with these data grid views, I want to point out some of the little properties over here that you might find interesting, like allow the user to add rows, delete rows, order the columns, resize the columns, resize rows. You can set alternating rows styles, so you can have them, alternate colors for alternate rows. You can change all the different appearances and the column heights. This data source is what we set to actually connect it to a data source. You can have F2 to edit, so you can have editing. You can let people edit the data right from there. So let's run this again real quick, and I'll show you a couple of those things happening. dc.lab.pri, show me the disk data. So I can click to reorder these things. Of course, it doesn't matter because they're the same. I can resize the columns, right, because that's enabled. I can resize the rows because that's enabled. It's over here. If I had enabled it, I could be editing in here or double-clicking to edit. So you could actually rig these up to edit data and push it back into the database. I mean, there's a lot you can do with these things, and they're not that hard. I mean, you saw there, it might have taken me 10 minutes to do all that, really only about 5 minutes to explain it to you. And now that you've seen the script code, it's really all you need. There's not much more to it than that. You're going to change your connection string, you're going to change your command, but this tends to be a little boilerplatey to actually connect it up to that grid view. So you came, you saw, you conquered the graphical user interface, you created the GUI, you added PowerShell code to make it come to life, you learned how to present output to your users in different ways, and you've even conquered the beginnings of data tables, which are a very powerful way to both present output and sometimes even collect input. So now that you're a GUI master, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.